want to start out in the first five today to talk about the press conference President Trump held this morning. I have short segments available through Matt, the very wonderful producer, helping me long distance. So, Matt, if we can first play what President Trump had to say this morning at the White House related to the situation between America and Iran.
As long as I'm President of the United States, Iran will never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. Good morning. I'm pleased to inform you the American people should be extremely grateful and happy. No Americans were harmed in last night's attack by the Iranian regime. We suffered no casualties. All of our soldiers are safe, and only minimal damage was sustained at our military bases. Our great American forces are prepared for anything. Iran appears to be standing down, which is a good thing for all parties concerned and a very good thing for the world. No American or Iraqi lives were lost because of the precautions taken, the dispersal of forces, and an early warning system that worked very well. I salute the incredible skill and courage of America's men and women in uniform. For far too long, all the way back to 1979 to be exact, nations have tolerated Iran's destructive and destabilizing behavior in the Middle East and beyond. Those days are over. Iran has been the leading sponsor of terrorism, and their pursuit of nuclear weapons threatens the civilized world. At my direction, the United States military eliminated the world's top terrorist, Qasem Soleimani. As the head of the Quds Force, Soleimani was personally responsible for some of the absolutely worst atrocities. He trained terrorist armies, including Hezbollah, launching terrorist strikes against civilian targets. He fueled bloody civil wars all across the region. He viciously wounded and murdered thousands of U.S. troops, including the planting of roadside bombs that maim and dismember their victims. Soleimani directed the recent attacks on U.S. personnel in Iraq that badly wounded 4 service members and killed 1 American, and he orchestrated the violent assault on the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. In recent days, he was planning new attacks on American targets, but we stopped him. Soleimani's hands were drenched in both American and Iranian blood. He should have been terminated long ago. By removing Soleimani, we have sent a powerful message to terrorists. If you value your own life, you will not threaten the lives of our people. Iran has seized ships in international waters, fired an unprovoked strike on Saudi Arabia, and shot down 2 U.S. drones. Iran's hostilities substantially increased after the foolish Iran nuclear deal was signed in 2013, and they were given $150 billion, not to mention $1.8 billion in cash. Instead of saying thank you to the United States, they chanted death to America. In fact, they chanted death to America the day the agreement was signed. Then Iran went on a terror spree, funded by the money from the deal, and created hell in Yemen, Syria, Lebanon, Afghanistan, and Iraq. The missiles fired last night at us and our allies were paid for with the funds made available by the last administration.
Folks, I wanted to really encourage you, if you did not watch that press conference this morning, you can watch the entire press conference by going to my website, americacanwetalk.org, and at that, my website, on the homepage under shows, drop-down list of links, there's a link to the entire press conference. It's actually really worth listening to the whole thing. The reason I wanted to kick off today's first five with that is to focus on who it was that the American forces removed, eliminated just a couple days ago, January 3rd, and how important and significant it was as an effort to fight against the spread of Islamic terror coming out of Iran. I also want to commend one article to you to read. It's also on our website, americacanwetalk.org. It's called Qasem Soleimani, He Will Kill No More. It's actually from the Arab News. And the reason I really urge you to read this and understand is that much of what you're hearing out of Washington from the American left and from the media and from the Democrat presidential candidates is an argument that this was kind of like this was somehow grotesquely out of line, that this guy, he may have been a bad guy, but we just can't go around killing people like him because we might provoke the Iranians. And so it's important for people to understand killing him should be seen the same as the killing of Osama bin Laden, which most of America celebrated. I mean, I guess some Americans may have thought it was a bad idea, but for most of America, we recognized whoever was president, taking out a man of that kind of person, that enemy of America, that leader of terror, was a good thing. Same with the killing of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, also praised by most Americans. What people didn't happen to know the name of this gentleman who was killed recently by American forces, the Iranian general Soleimani, but to know just a little bit about his life, what he did, what he was responsible for, really puts in my view, puts into broad colors, into bold colors, the idea that the main reason the American left and people in Washington and the media are decrying this American military action is because underlying it all, there is an effort to, in any way possible, to criticize, to demean, to call into question President Trump and his leadership of this country. This guy who was taken out, the Iranian general Soleimani, was, as you just heard President Trump mentioning in brief in his comments this morning, has a long record of killing, murder, mayhem all over the Middle East. And we're going to talk with our expert coming up next. I mentioned at the start of the show, we had Claire Lopez joining us. We're going to talk about the idea. So, okay, he's a really bad guy and everybody knows it. And once you understand all the evil he committed, the thousands and thousands of lives he ended through his military action, through his leadership, through orchestrating the attack, including, by the way, he was the one that orchestrated the attack, did not conduct it personally, but orchestrated the attack on the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, which was what led ultimately to the military action to decide to take him out. Understanding what a bad guy he was, even though he didn't know his name, helps people get around to understanding taking him out is a step toward progress in telling the Iranians, we will not put up with your aggression. Now, that is my take on it. I could give you a lengthy laundry list of the military actions, the conduct of this man over decades that would cause you to realize the world is a better place without him. To read that document I mentioned, that again is on our website at americacanwetalk.org. Understand this was not a minor player, and this also wasn't just a political figure within the country of Iran. This was a violently brutal military leader whose conduct in carrying out the Iranian mission to spread Islam and force Islam, but spread Islam through violence, to support terrorism and the many terrorist groups that are funded by the Iranian government. This was a man who, as President Trump said, should have been taken out a long time ago. I'll wrap up this first five by saying I will come back to this point at the end of this show. But I'm very curious to hear Clara Lopez's views. I'm so glad she was available. We're very honored to have her joining us. I'm going to introduce her in a moment. But I'll come back to this point at the end. I don't even think we'd be having this conversation if President Obama or some other Democrat were president of our country and had engaged in exactly what the military did under President Trump. We wouldn't even be having the conversation. The conversation is happening in large part because of the American left's determination to, in every way they can, attack, demean, and belittle President Trump.